All right, people, we are live. We are on another creator spotlight today. I have the esteemed Tom Hutchinson from Big Dog Inc. with us today. And so we are here to talk like always, usually comic books or artwork or writing and whatnot. So just a little background because I know Tom a little bit, and he is the creator of everything, Big Dog Inc. So it makes it easy for me. But he's also the writer, and he's done a lot of work with not just them, but with other companies as well. Because I'll hit on that in a little bit later too. But just give the floor to you, Tom. Kind of explain where you're from, how'd you get started in the business, of course, and where do you want to see your business go?
Yeah. So I am Tom. I am uh, the multi-hat wearing guy who's in charge, I guess. So I'm the writer. I'm the publisher of Big Dog Inc. I am the art director. I am the sales guy at cons. I do live sales on Facebook. What else? I do all the shipping for the most part. So I do a little bit of everything. We've been doing this. 2023 is our 13-year anniversary. Um, Superheroes, westerns, horror, fantasy, kaiju, jungle girls, historical fiction, a little bit of everything, honestly. And that's just because that's the stuff that I like. So I kind of, since I'm the boss, I get to write whatever I want whenever I want to write it. So I'll kind of focus in on a given thing, knock out that mini series or story arc or whatever it is, and then along the way I'll be thinking, well, okay, what's next? Well, let me work on the new shark book. Let me work on the new gladiator book. Let me do this. Let me do that. So I kind of just run the rabbit hole kind of wherever my brain is at the time. Like I finished that task. Let's go over here. But yeah, 13 years of making comics. I it's been a road. I mean, like you said, it's Big Dog Inc. It's been Aspen Comics. I've written now
Mhm.
for Dynamite Comics. Antarctic Press is picking up our stuff to take our stuff back to retail stores in January. So I've a lot of my stuff has been sort of compartmentalized in Big Dog Inc., but it has branched out from time to time in some other places. And with Dynamite, that was my first attempt at taking on someone else's property, and I have just been given the green light to do something else for Dynamite as well as for another company that I'll be starting in August. So it's interesting to kind of start moving out of my own characters and playing in some other sandboxes. I don't know necessarily if there's a like which I prefer. But it is interesting to be able to get into some other places and have new fans find out what I do and how I do things. So yeah,
And it's interesting because you were talking about it, and I have that issue.
you got the Bad Kitty. Yeah,
Yeah,
is that foil or metal?
the metal,
The
the
metal,
metal.
dude. I haven't even seen that stuff. That's great.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, I got it, and I was like, I'm a huge listener fan. I have been
Sure,
since the old days of all the Dawn and
it's
stuff.
great.
But this turned
Holy
out
cow.
freaking phenomenal. So, and this is why people you support Kickstarters, you know, because you get good deals like $75 metal. Like when we
Yeah,
were
and
talking.
those things are printed to order. You're not going to be able to get those at a con or anything. I mean, you had two chances. It was on Indiegogo and then it was
Yep.
on Kickstarter, and that's it. I don't even have one of those, dude. So I got
and
comps of the book, but I didn't get comps of like all the metals and foils and
the
all that stuff.
variants.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because I'm a huge Coffin guy.
Hmm.
I'm an old school chaos
Hmm.
guy.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
when you brought Bad Kitty back, that's all automatically two people go into two different directions. Okay, we
Hmm.
both know that direction. Either A, don't ever touch it because it was already chaos,
Hmm.
or B, let it go and then see where it goes with
Sure.
Dynamite.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like I'm always going to give it a chance to see where
Sure.
it goes, just like I did with Evil Ernie in
Hmm.
Dynamite. I tried it, didn't like it, and that's my opinion. You
Sure.
know,
Yeah. Well,
everybody's.
hopefully you got to read Bad Kitty and you liked it at least.
I did, and I had no problem with it because I know you wrote it, so
Mhm.
it's kind of like I know where I'm going to get because
Sure. Sure.
like when I read Legend of Oz, those kind of books, back in the day, when you were doing Aspen and those kind of like I remember that those kind of days, but I didn't put like two and two together, that it was you doing it. Because when I got starting to talk to you, you were already doing BDI stuff.
Mhm.
So I'm like, crap. So you were writing all that stuff way back when I was reading it. Like Nei was doing
Mhm.
artwork, and everything. So I'm like, it kind of makes sense, when you think about timing perspective, is that
Mhm.
in our industry, we're all such a tight knit group real fast that everybody hears about everything real fast.
Mhm.
And so when you have a new book that comes out, the community is either going to be very gentle or be very hard against you, and we all
Yeah.
and we all know how that goes.
Yes.
But the part for me is like, don't beat up the writers, don't beat up the artists and the colorists and them, because at the end of the day, you still have a job to do. You got
Yeah.
money to make, because you got to support yourself,
Sure.
and that's kind of hard for people to hear. Is like, that you're changing their characters, you're changing them. Like for me, I'm always going to love Stephen Hughes as Lady Death,
Sure.
always will be, and everybody does, because that's the original. But at the same time, people have different interpretations of that.
Mhm.
And they can modify it and do it. So to see like the storylines get changed is sometimes a good thing. Now, I will tell you, I tried to read the Purgatory stuff. It's hard to read through because it's not, it's clunky. Some of it's clunky as reading through it. And sometimes that takes a little bit to get used to.
Sure.
But
Well, yeah,
once,
anytime you have a new writer on something, it can always feel off,
uh
and that's for anything. That's for Spider-Man or Batman or whatever.
that's right.
Somebody new comes in after somebody's had it for a long time. If that writer is coming in, specifically, if that writer's coming in and being like, well, I got to make this like my version of this thing, oftentimes that can be a wall
Yep.
that fans will be like, I don't know if I can get through this wall because what you're doing is not what I'm used to the past so many years. So like when we did Bad Kitty, I did this with CB Zane. My pitch to Dynamite was, look, I don't want to do what you guys did. There was a Bad Kitty one shot in like 2014 or something, where
Uh-huh.
they completely changed the character to be sort of like this dual personality thing, and that's kind of where the Bad Kitty came from. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to take this back to what it was. I want to
Yep.
go back to the original miniseries, a couple of miniseries, the one shots. Like, I want to go back to Louisiana. I want to
Yep.
go back to that element, start there, and then thread it forward with a story that the old fans will understand, because we're going to relate it back to them. And then at the same time, just start opening doors that we can, if they should decide they want to do more, we have doors open all over the place for the character to go forward, while still, sort of paying tribute to where it came from. And Nick Barucci over there, he was like, I'm good with that. Let's do it. Go. There we go. I muted myself
There
by
you
accident.
go.
So yeah, so Nick Barucci was like, "Yeah, do what you want, man. I hear what you're saying. Do what you want to do." And I was like, "Awesome." And so, first thing we did is we went and got CB to do the art, because I'd worked with him so many times. And off we went, and we created the book, and I think it came out great. And so far the fan response has been really good, and there is the chance that we'll get to do more. Like I said earlier, I have been greenlit to write another character for Dynamite, which will be sometime next year. And as we're kind of doing that, we'll talk about more Bad Kitty too.
Awesome. Well, like, I'd like to see your interpretation of
Oh,
Purgatory.
now I don't hear you.
Can you hear me? I can hear you, but
Oh, I
can you
don't
hear
hear
me,
you.
Tom?
What has happened now? What has happened? Let me let me drop out and come back in, because I think I might have messed up my mic and my thing. I'll be right back.
Okay. All right, folks. So yeah, and this is what we were talking about. Like, this is a great story that Tom wrote. So you got to give Tom a chance. Um,
Hello, everybody hear me?
all right, there you
And
go.
I don't hear you. What is happening right now?
You are double on
Why
there.
can't I
So
hear you?
me,
Oh,
you got two.
don't know why you would hear me and I don't hear you. That's very odd.
Okay. Here, hold on. You have.
Because I don't see you on mute.
Let's see.
All right, let me try this again. I'm actually leave the studio here.
Yeah. We will get him back, folks. But yeah, excuse me. Bad Kitty, of course, is a huge, huge character that I loved, from the Chaos days. And Tom has definitely put a good interpretation on it. So the cool part is like it is a story with CB that's freaking awesome. And I highly recommend it to everybody that you come in and
There we go. Now I hear you. I don't.
so
This whole microphone system. If you decide to get weird with it, like the unplugs, like it's like I'm not going to work anymore. You got to start from scratch.
and it's funny because you showed up twice in the studio, and it was like,
Oh,
I'm
that's
like,
really
okay,
weird.
you're in there twice.
Yeah, that's weird. Well, we got it back. We're back. Sorry, folks. We're back. We got it.
We're
Just
good.
don't touch anything, and we'll be fine.
So I was
It's like
telling them,
Alan Grant from the Jurassic Park. Don't touch anything.
don't touch nothing; it's gonna break. What I was telling everybody while you were out is that everybody should give this a chance.
Yeah.
Just like any other book out there in the world. It's like give it a chance, give it a read. It has that old school chaos feel to it. So
That was our
you're
goal.
you're gonna get that kind of storyline with this, but it's also this. The part is too is that you come from the background like I do. Is that we grew up with these characters. We
Mhm.
know how they should be, and how their stories should be for everybody else.
Yeah.
And so when we deliver this out to everyone, they're going to enjoy it. It's not going to be the consternation around pieces. Like I had a hard time with Evil Ernie when you made him a kid. Like with a cut. No, not the hair. Not it's like, and he didn't have any of his powers. Didn't have it. When you change a character too dramatically, you lose your fans, and that's exactly what happened.
Very true. It's very true. Yeah.
And so for me, I mean, I've learned for a lot of your characters, they're pretty similar. Like as you keep going through the storylines, they're pretty good. And like when I was reading through Princess versus Zombies, the recent one that came out, 1.5, you know, these are characters that you grow up with, and they're different interpretations of the same stories. Like, you guys have, your version of Snow White, your version of, Oz and everybody there. And then, of course, the Mad Hatter, which is one of my favorite stories, And for me, I appreciate different interpretations while still having just a little bit of that originality still tied to it. Like you still know who that character is, but it's not the same way.
Yeah, that's really the key, right? It's like, and that's where, like with Legend of Oz, the key selling point to that has been that everything that I did for my Western reimagining of Oz came from the books. So, while there's certainly little Easter eggs to the movie and to Wicked and things, there's little hints and drops and stuff. It really the foundation of it came from L. Frank Baum. It came from what he did with his characters in the books originally, his 14 original books. So when I'm trying to sell this book to somebody who's like, oh, tell me what this is, oftentimes I've already got them, right? They're already like, I know what Oz is, I know who Dorothy Gale is, like, what is this thing? But then when you have the sort of the purists or the traditionalists of Oz, who are just the book and just that first movie and like absolutely nothing else for the most part, those are really hard, nuts to crack. And I get invited out to a convention. It's a festival in New York every year in Chittenango, which is where L. Frank Baum was born. So they celebrate his birthday every year. And this will be my 10th straight year that they've invited me out. So over the years, I have watched the people who were, sort of snubbing their nose at me, at the first year and the second year. And then suddenly I'm there again and I'm there again. And eventually they're like, all right, so tell me what this is. And okay, here's what it is. And they're like, well, I don't know if I like that. I'm like, well, you can just try the first one
Yeah.
and see if you like it. And if you do, we have more. And I would say probably 90% of the time I would have somebody come back either the next day, because the festival is 3 days, or just next year. And they were like, hey, I got this. I understand what you're doing. It's still a little weird to me because it's so different from what we understand, but they can still see the foundation of L. Frank Baum in all of the characters. And they're like, this is, give me more. And that's that. So that's a really great, it's a really great feeling that you can sort of win over the people that don't want you to succeed with whatever it is you're doing, not that they wish bad on you, but like, they're just like, you shouldn't be doing that. Like, that's, it's similar with like chaos stuff, right? It's like, you shouldn't be touching chaos stuff. I was like, no, I mean, this IP dies if no one touches it, right? It disappears and it's gone. So, and that's unfortunately why we get a lot of reboots and retcons and things, because IP just dies if you don't use it. Now that doesn't mean that the reboots and the retcons are any good necessarily all the time, but that's why they exist, because otherwise IP dies. So yeah, and I do that a little bit. We have that with Oz. We have some of that a little bit with we do a little bit of that with Penny for Your Soul, where we sort of reinterpret the Bible and the end of days. So we have a little bit of that stuff. And then we just have our original stuff, which is like, Critter and Kaiju Epic and things that are just, what I create.
And you were talking about Penny for the Soul.
Yeah.
This was the Justin Hunt one. So this was, the re-one, the first re-one, number one.
Right.
Not the remaster we just had this year.
Right.
And I highly recommend, if you didn't get in on that one, jump into the next Kickstarter, because Tom's really good about putting backup issues for other books into it, so it helps out.
Yeah, if you're new to us, well, first of all, if you're new to us, everything we have is in collected edition. Like, you get a trade paperback really easy if you just want to read the stuff. That's super easy. That stuff's always on our website, bigdoginc.com. If you are a Kickstarter person and you like to support the Kickstarters, same thing. We will put in the previous however many volumes that we have, so that you can get caught up either on the last few issues or the trade paperbacks. So we try and make it very, very easy access to whatever you want to try and get into. And if you have any questions, you can always just reach out to me and say, hi, how do I get the start of this? And I'll point you in the right direction.
Yeah, and what I was going to recommend is what I did the first time, is get a mystery box.
Yep, so, that's a great starter pack as well. Yeah.
Now, granted, they might not all be number ones, to start the series, but at least it gives you a starting thing to look at. Like, this is the kind of story you're going to get in it, And I was like, okay, and that's how I started into this. And then I'm like, I started putting 2 and 2 together. I'm like, I've read this before. Where is this? And I'm like, okay, and you start looking. I'm like, okay, I remember reading this stuff. This is the same time like Raven was writing, all the Beyond Wonderland stuff, back when. And I was like, I remember this stuff.
So it's as he was writing that, we were just getting our start.
And then you were talking about Critter, and CB Zane. So I like this cover, of course, from Critter. And I got really huge into Critter, really because of the action figure that you're doing right now. Because I'm a huge executive replicas collector, so I collect anything that they do. And so I went back reading through Critter, and it's like there's a lot to read. I mean, there's a lot to read in Critter. I mean, and then Penny for Your Soul the same, because I mean, it's been an IP you guys have had for a long time.
Yeah, well, Critter and Penny and Oz all have at least 5 volumes worth of content. Oz now has 6. Critter is about to have 6. And Penny will have 6 in 2025 when we bring back a new one there. So those were our first 3 IP, and we've been running with them. And I'm super excited to get back to Critter, because with as much as there is to read, we haven't even scratched the surface of what I've been attempting to do with this story. So when Critter comes back in 2024 in January, we're going to be finishing volume 6, and volume 6 gets us up to issue 25. And it really puts into context all of the stuff that we've been doing prior. There's been all of these little threads and ideas and things that have been dropped and talked about. And as we go into this and we get up to issue 25, which will be a big milestone moment for the book, a lot of that stuff starts to sort of coalesce, and you'll understand what it all means and how it works. And we've been waiting to do this for years and years and years. So I'm excited to do it. Omar Zaldivar is doing the art, along with his brother Hedwin is going to do the colors. Those two are just, they're fantastic separately, but together they're mind-blowing what they do. So they're going to do that next arc for us all next year. In fact, the first book is already almost done, and we don't launch it till January. So Omar is doing a great job. We have tons of covers that we're going to be working on. We're going to be really expanding the Critterverse. We call it the Critterverse. We're going to be really, really powering into it, because that was the first book I ever wrote. Because when I wanted to write comics, I was like, I don't know how to write a comic, but I understood superheroes, right? So I kind of felt like I could create a superhero character. I could create a superhero universe. I could create supporting characters, because I understand the genre, maybe more so than sci-fi or anything else at that point. So I was like, let me start here and let me see what I can do. And that's where we started. I mean, so we published in 2010. That was the first Critter. But I had been writing prior to that about 5 years, trying to figure out, like, how do you even do this? Like, what even is a comic book script? Like, how do you do anything? And so even in 2010 and then 2011, when we did our first Critter miniseries,
and that's hard.
I was still woefully unprepared for anything. So I even spelled my own name wrong on the first cover. Like I did it myself. I spelled it wrong on the cover. So so it's been quite a trip from 2010 to now. And we've grown a lot. We've learned a lot, and like we've only just started.
Isn't that the fun part of this? Like, you've been doing this for 13 years, and you're just really getting started.
Yeah, it's like we're just kind of catching stride at 13 years.
and ironically, that's what happens in the independent scene, though. I mean, some things take a while to catch on. I mean, unless you've been in an IP since the 90s or 80s, it's hard. It's really hard to break in as a new one. I work with Ethereal Comics with Dustin and those in April, and you know all these guys.
Yep.
So I work with Ethereal, and it's the same thing. They've been doing this stuff for a long time. It's just now starting to pick up steam, and it just, and you're seeing, a lot of these independent companies finally getting to where they should be at. It's like, okay, you're never going to be Image, but you shouldn't have to be Image either. You should be able to be what you want to be, and then have fun doing it. But you should be still getting the same kind of recognition, because you guys bust your ass to do this work, and I understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I just had this discussion with a retailer today at the con where he works with publishers, and that publishers, doing Kickstarters and stuff. And even he was like, the direct market, the way that we understand comics and how it works, it just doesn't work for small press, really, of any kind, with really rare exceptions. I mean, even companies that have licensing deals with huge IPs, even they struggle to stay in business. So, the advent of crowdfunding, where we can literally essentially pitch ourselves to the audience rather than pitching ourselves to Diamond, and then Diamond pitches it to a retailer, and then a retailer tries to sell it to a customer. Like, we're just going right to the customer. We're just like, hey, I make Critter. Here's my superhero book. You should check it out. And then the consumer decides if they want to be a part of that or not. And that's capitalism. That's consumerism. That's what it is. That's the way it should be. Your success shouldn't really rely on anything other than your customers. The gatekeeping days are essentially over. And you can do anything you want kind of anytime you want, which which should be looked at as very freeing, and with the gates just blown open to do whatever you want, kind of whenever you want. Now we're seeing people just come in and be like, I'm making a book, I'm making a movie, I'm making a album, I'm making whatever, because Kickstarter is not just comics, it's everything. It's creation. And so yeah, comics is sort of the key component of Kickstarter, but I think part of that is just because of the regularity of what comics are. No one's going in there and making a movie every 6 months, but they might go in and fund a movie, and then 5 years later maybe they do it again. But with comics, we're all making like issue 1, issue 2, issue 3, issue 4. So comics is sort of the foundation of crowdfunding, but you can literally do anything you want.
And that's what's kind of nice is like, and you said it, Kickstarters were built for us as customers, as fans, for a reason, is that I don't have to wait for it to come out 5-6 months through Diamond to an LCS to get into my hands to read either. So I used to run an LCS. I hated dealing with Diamond. That was my bane of my existence, because half the time my books came in, they were messed up, so my customers were mad. And 2, you would have to order so much stuff just to get that 1 in 50, that 1 in 100, and it's like, and now you're sitting on a bunch of stuff that you don't need. I mean, that's why Valiant had such issues in the 90s, because you had to buy so much to get those Chrome Deathmake covers. I'm like, never again would I ever do that again.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that run shops, and I used to run a shop too. Oh, I ran a shop in the 90s, and then I owned my own shop late 90s. I don't envy those folks in this crazy business right now. It's a brutal business right now. But from a creative side of things, it's the Wild West. Between crowdfunding like Kickstarter, between things like Patreon and Substack, where you're getting digital content and direct contact with the creators of the things. It's never been a better time to be creative, because there's no restrictions anymore.
And that's the difference between independent and the big two. It always has been, is that I can come to you as a creator or as a writer or an artist, and you didn't forget where you came from. You didn't forget that, hey, we've been with you since the beginning, and you still treat us like the friends that we've been forever. And it's kind of sad. Like, I hate to say it, like when I saw Jim Lee in the 90s, but you know what? If I go to see Jim Lee today, I got to be getting a lottery ticket.
Right.
I'm like, this is the dude who used to give me free signatures on X-Men 1 in the 90s. So now, now that he's the president of DC, pretty much, I can't even get his signature, unless I get lucky. And I'm like, to me, that kind of puts you off from the fans. I mean, and it's like Neil Adams told me the one thing he said in a convention. He said, if I ever get to the point where I can't sit down and talk to a fan, I shouldn't be doing this anymore, because without the fans, there is no me, there is no art, there is no writing, there is no company. And it's sad to see like some places are getting that way. But that's why I'm always going to be an indie guy for that reason, is because I can always reach out and say, hey, can you help me with this? Can you explain this to me? Like we were talking about Penny for Your Soul and the back issues that one day. I'm like, and you just took 10 minutes, told me where they're all at, where to go get them. Okay, now I know how to read the story. That 5 minutes is what helps out people understand your brand. And you're trying to sell your brand as a business owner, but you're also trying to cultivate new customers to come in.
Sure.
As well, to say, okay, here's this, but by the way, we also have this IP. Oh, you like CB Sound? Well, guess what? Guess what CB did for me? He did all these books here. Once you try these books out, or you like Nia Rufino? Well, she does this for me, or or Marissa Pope. It's like I got the box, with the Marissa Pope, cover. I've known Marissa for a long time. She's a good friend, so I'm always going to support the writers and the artists that are my friends first, but then I want to support new people that are just starting in the business as well, because you got to give them a chance. If not, they're never going to get to the same level everyone else is.
Well, and you people move up the ladder. They get to Marvel or DC or whatever, and then they can't do stuff anymore. You have to keep restoking the fire. So that's one of the fun parts for me is I've always been an art fan. I was an art dealer for a while. And so for me, it's like, I'm always looking for new people, like always. And just in the past year, we've picked up like 4 or 5 new people, and most of them have just come in and are just running. It's just like, dude, here's another one, here's another one, here's another one. Narcio Sousa did a cover for us for Penny for Your Soul, or for Princess versus Zombies last year, and then it sold really well. It was his first ever cover for us, and I was like, all right, well, let me give you another one. And then he turned it in, and I liked it so much that I was just like, let's go. Here's another one. Here's another one. I've got like 10 in the can for him, and we've put out like 2.
Yep.
So and he's got 2 on Goth Day. So when we launch on Monday, he actually has 2 covers on Goth Day. And I love this guy so much. He has so taken to what we do. And he loves, every time I send him a new character, it's like, okay, now I want you to draw this. I always get like these emojis back, like, holy crap, that's awesome. So he's amazing. Eisenetta Adamar, again, another guy, absolutely amazing, leveling up every time he's done stuff. Mars Fung is a new one. She just did a cover for Goth Day. It's her first cover. She's doing the rookie cover for Goth Day, so she's brand new. God, who are the new guys? I'm not even going to remember now, but I'm always looking for new people, always. And sometimes you find guys and you're just like, that clicks. MR Gunn, we picked up MR Gunn back in 2020, and then we had a gap period. And then he came back, and he came back strong. He's been on almost everything we've done for like the last year now. So some of these guys come in, do a couple of things, cool. Others come in and they're like, oh, you're the guy right now. We're gonna load you up. And some people can handle that. They're ready for that sort of like, let's go. And other people are like, slow down. I can't do that. And that's fine. Like I'm not telling normal. Anyone that's a problem.
Yeah.
But when opportunity comes, if the door kicks open, you got to be ready to be like, let's go. Because comics don't stop. And there's a lot of places on Kickstarter now where these guys, where it used to be doing like every 6 months, maybe quarterly, now they're doing every other month. Like there's a lot of work out there. And if you don't take it and you don't run with it and really solidify yourself, someone else is going to take that spot. And that's just the way it is. It's the sports analogy. It's what I always talk about, like in football, right? There's 32 teams, which means there's 32 quarterbacks, but behind every one of those quarterbacks is 50 dudes ready to take that spot as soon as he falls down. So you want to make sure that you are one of the starting quarterbacks, and you want to make sure you are on your feet as long as possible. Because otherwise somebody's going to take it.
And that's a hard piece, is that because when you have these, I mean, if I go look on Kickstarter today and I just do a search on comics, there's hundreds and hundreds of Kickstarters.
Yeah.
And so your dollar only goes so far as a customer.
Sure.
You can only buy so much and do so much. And so you've got to be very smart in like how you do it. So you've really got to sell the brand when you're doing the Kickstarter. You've really got to be selling something that clicks with the customer, that they come back. And if you can get them to come back for those recurring Kickstarters, people can't do them all every time. That's normal. That's just what happens. But if they can try to come back and say, if you have 5 a year, they come in and they do at least 3 out of the year, then, at least they're interested enough to buy it 3 times.
Yeah.
And then you're going to have some people that can do all 5 times because they're so invested, like in that character. Like if you had a Critter come out and then they're a huge Critter fan, they're going to be there every time. Penny for Your Soul, same thing. And like this one, I had a blast reading Kaji, man. Dude, I had a blast reading this. I had never read it before, and I had fun with it because I'm a huge Gojira fan because I was living in Japan. And so we're living there. We watched Gojira, we watched Rodan, we had fun. I see your Godzilla shirt too. So, and I'm like, yeah, I have a blast with those, and so are we ever going to get like something additional to go with this though? Are we going to get to number 2?
Yes. Okay. I talk with Kerry Castor, who's my co-writer on that, about that a lot. We don't know exactly when that's going to happen. but we want to get to it. We ran into a point where a few years ago where we suddenly had all these anniversaries. We had 10-year anniversary of Critter and Penny. Then we had the 10-year anniversary of Legend of Oz, then 10 years of Ursa Minor. So we everything kind of went on the back burner, and we focused year by year for each of these sort of pieces, because we had these big moments. But Kaiju and Lights Camera Jungle and Antoinette and all of these sort of side projects are all very much alive for us. It's just a matter of like, okay, we got to get through these things that we know we have to do, and then we can start to sprinkle in some of this stuff again. And things like, unfortunately, things like Goth Day kind of got in the way too, because now that that's become an annual thing, that could have been like an annual Kaiju book or an annual Antoinette book, right? But because Goth Day became so popular, instead of just doing that one and being like, hey, we did our Goth Day and we're done, everybody's like, so we're doing this again, right? I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing it again. And so this is technically year 4 for us for Goth Day. But it is the third issue of the book that actually is story. So originally Goth Day in 2020, which is Big Dog Inc.'s 10-year anniversary, I wanted to find something fun to do. There's always Star Wars Day and everybody's doing stuff for that. There's Friday the 13th. Everybody does stuff for that. St. Patrick's Day, everybody does stuff for that. I'm like, I want to find a day that no one else does anything with. And so I started just looking at these weird calendars, and I just stumbled across Goth Day, and I was like, that is amazing. And so in 2020, we just had artists reinterpret our characters in their sort of goth alternatives, and we just did some covers for it, like that one that you have, that Justin Hunt. That was from the first Goth Day. And so that was Mary Magdalene in her goth outfit there. And so we put those covers out, and it was so popular that people were like, dude, you got to do this again. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I'm not the kind of guy who's just coming out and slapping a cover on old product. I try not to do that much. We have done it, but I wasn't really comfortable just like, I'm just going to repackage a thing and put a cover on it. So I was like, well, if I do this again, I need to level it up. And initially I was thinking like we could just add some, like we could do like a backup story and something, like we could use a Critter volume 1 and just add like a backup story, but that, I don't know if I like that. And so I just bit the bullet, and I was like, all right, look, we're just going to build a goth world. And then that will allow us to take all of our characters that don't exist in the same bubble. Like Ursa Minor does not cross over with Legend of Oz, does not cross over with Penny for Your Soul, does not cross over with Kaiju. This isn't like Marvel where they're all in the same sandbox. But the way that I built Goth World, and people that understand my characters and the Big Dog Inc. continuity as a whole understand it. It is a canon thing within our storytelling. And it allows us to take all of our characters from everywhere and just be like, okay, let's just tell this story now, within the goth parameters. So I think that 2025 will be the last one. I think we're going to do 5 issues and sort of put a bow on the idea of Goth Day. But if this year's really good and next year's really good, and people are like, dude, what are you doing next? Well, okay, maybe it'll hang around a little longer, or maybe it becomes a semi-annual thing. But I'd always come into Goth Day as like, let's just do this for a period, and then we'll be like, okay, we've done it, now let's move on to something else. But the fans speak, and if they're wild for it, then we'll keep going.
Well, and it's like I bought the spinoff comics, that has all 3 characters: Catnip, Sireness, and then Mighty Might, which is a cool story because you essentially took 3 companies, put them together in one book, and had a story. And I loved it. We all know Wendy, we all know CB. They are great people to work with. And it was an interesting read to see that go through, because I was like, okay, now I kind of see.
It's 3 wildly different characters, 3 completely different uh, types of storytelling. Even for me on Catnip, that storytelling is not my normal
Hmm.
writing. Like if you read Critter or anything else, like it's not normal writing, and I did that on purpose, and that's across all of the Goth Day books.
Yep.
I pushed myself out of the comfort zone that I was in from a writing standpoint with all the other things, and I wanted it to become. Um, I don't want to. I'm not like a like a scholarly person. I'm not like, I don't want to be like, oh, this is literature now. But I wanted it to have a sense of like, oh, Tom can really write. Like he can do things that aren't just goofy genre, right?
Hmm.
And so and I think it's come across that way, and I think it's gotten a little better each time. And each book kind of has a little through line, because each issue 1, 2, and 3, they're all in the same world, but they're all essentially uh, their own book. So while there is some narrative crossover that you understand this is the same world, they are essentially their same book. So even if coming in on Monday when we launch, even if you just buy number 3, guys, it's just a story for itself. Like
Yep.
it's not like a heavy continuity thing. But you are able to go back and get issue 1 and 2 as well. So if you wanted to catch up, we can catch up. But yeah, even when I started to write this one and I had to figure out what my through line was, I went back and read the first 2. And I found myself just enjoying reading them. I was like, oh, I kind of like this. This is kind of nice. It's never going to be the way that I write, across the board, but it's really fun to dip into it, sort of once a year and stretch the writing muscles to see what you can do, with just a different tone and methodology to your storytelling. So I really like them. People have really been digging on it, obviously, because we continue to do it. And I think when we're done, whether it's 5 issues or whatever, I think we'll have a nice package. Like it'll be a nice, trade paperback collected edition of these 5 unique issues. I think it'll be something that me and CB and Gat, who does the colors now, I think it'll be something that we can be really proud of, because it's such a different thing in comics. So for whatever that's worth, we think it's different. Hopefully you guys do too.
Oh yeah, and to me, I like it because it's a different interpretation of the multiverse that you have in
Yeah.
BDI, but it's completely different, which is what I like. It's like
Well,
it's like
and before you finish that thought, be sure you read this next volume of Critter, because our multiverse doesn't work like anyone else's multiverse. And that's
it
the
don't.
only hint I'm giving you, because I don't want to spoil anything. But unlike every other multiverse in the world, ours doesn't work the same way. So pay attention to this next volume of Critter, because it's going to affect everything.
And that's what I was going to say is that you can it's tied, but it's loosely tied
Mm-hmm.
together.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's part of the mystery of it. It's like you can see like things are like catnip and critter and Ursa Minor. Like you could see things like that being tied together. But then when you put in Penny for Your Soul into that, like where would that really fit in with critter? So it's like you can see little lines in the sand,
Well, Critter and Penny for Your, and this is the weird one, Critter and Penny for Your Soul exist in the same world.
Yeah.
They are the only books of ours that exist in. That's not true. So does Lights Camera Jungle. They are the only ones that exist in the same world. We actually did a Penny for Your Soul Critter crossover.
Yeah, I remember that.
There was, Critter went to Vegas for 2 issues. So there is that. But then when you take that idea, and then you read the first issue of Critter, or sorry, the first issue of Goth Day, and you understand who those characters are at the end, then you start to understand what is happening with the goth world and how that affects literally everything.
Mm.
So it's interesting. And I don't really tell people a whole lot, even when we do interviews and stuff. Like, I don't tell people a whole lot. I don't get real specific because I kind of want people to figure it out. Some people have figured it out. I've had people figure it out.
Mm.
And other people are still like, I don't know, man. And I'm like, well, I'm not going to tell you. I'm gonna let you experience it, because I'm going to tell you, but I'm gonna let you experience it if you don't see it coming yet. And then, like I said, our multiverse has a very specific purpose and methodology, and Critter Volume 6 that starts next year will define that a lot more.
You're not doing your job as a writer if they can figure it out already.
Yeah. I mean, some people are just going to get it, right? They're
Yeah,
just going to
some
be
people
like,
are gonna
dude, I
understand.
see what you're doing. But but as long as they say that with a smile on their face, like they're enjoying it, then you're fine.
Yeah.
But if you've got people still like, I don't know, man, like, I need another clue. I'm like, well, okay, another clue's coming. Don't worry, it's happening. So as long as it's a two-way street, people that see it still have to enjoy it, and so far so good.
And I've enjoyed what I've read so far. I've read through the first 3 volumes of Critter so far, and the first 2 volumes of Penny for Your Soul. And so I'm enjoying it as I go through. It's a lot to read. It's a lot to catch up on.
It is.
But I will tell you, digital is the way to go because it's so much easier than. And I'm a huge print. Like, I love having physical copies, but trying to lug every issue out, trying to read every issue, and even with trade paperbacks, sometimes that's even hard, especially when you've got a stack like this as you're trying to get through. So I'm like, I can throw in a digital and just go like this and keep reading it, and then I get it. I'm like, okay, it makes sense. And guess what? I can go back and read it again real easily on my phone or my computer. Then I can. All right, let me get out 8,000 trade paperbacks from my study.
But I literally have all the trade paperbacks here because I hate digital comics so much that I don't even want to look at my own books digitally. Like, I can't even when I'm editing the books, right? Like when the letters come in and I have to look at them on the screen to like edit it again. It's like, I don't want to look at this anymore. This is terrible. Can you just print them out and send them to me physically? This is horrible. And so when I have to do my research on myself and make sure I know what I'm talking about, I could just go open a file and be like, okay, there it is. But for me, it's like, nope, I need the books, and they're all literally right there. So I flip through them, and I'm like, that's my connection to comics. I digital just is, I don't care. Like, it's not real, even though I know it's going to be real. It's not real. So I'm too tactile, I think is what it is. And of course, I'm 51, right? I grew up with paper comics. So to me, that's what a comic is. Have I read digital comics? Of course. But it's not like I'm like, hey, let me just open up my Comixology and like look at comics. Like, that will never happen for me. I buy stuff from people on Kickstarter and at cons and whatever. And I just bring the book home and read it. That's the way that I got to do it.
And I'm the same way. Like, if I'm buying the Kickstarter book, I'm getting a book. I'm not buying just for digital. And that's just me personally. I'll get the digital because that way I don't have to damage the book.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yep. And I'll just read the digital so I don't damage the book. But it's like, I still got to have a physical book. Even if it's just cover A of that Kickstarter, I still got to at least have one physical copy, because that's what and you're right, that's what we grew up with. Like, I remember in the 80s sitting there reading Uncanny X-Men, and everybody's like, all right, they're in the freaking outback, Wolverine's tied to the cross, and you're like, and this is so cool to see that cover and hold that cover in your hand. I'm like, that's my kind of comic book. Now, granted, we now have metals, we have foils, we have
it's just, for me, it's a tactile thing.
It is.
I don't know. I'm similar with streaming too. Like, I have a big Blu-ray collection of stuff. So I want to be able to, if I was like, hey, you know what, I want to watch Jaws. Like, I don't want to be like, is it on Amazon? Is it on Hulu? Is it like, where the hell is it? How do I watch Jaws? Oh, I put the disc in. That's it. That's the way that I want my media to work. I have streaming. I stream stuff all the time, but if it's something that I like, I will hunt it down and own it physically, and not have to worry about it disappearing from whatever service it's on or moving
Yep.
to another one that, oh, now I have to go pay for that. Like The Office used to be on Netflix and
Yeah.
now it's over on like HBO or something else. I don't know where it is, but now it's like, oh, now I got to go get another one to get that. No, I'm going to go buy the DVD set. So now I
Exactly.
just have them.
I'm the same. I'm a huge media guy, and I'm a horror guy by trade. So
Hmm?
everything horror I buy, and I buy it religiously. Special editions and whatnot. Like
Hmm?
like the Paranormal Activity box set that just came out within the last year. I'm like, dude, it's got the one movie that's not in the original one, and it's not on Blu-ray anywhere, and it's not on a live stream. So I'm like, I gotta buy the box set, and guess what? Amazon has a sale for $30.
Yeah.
I'm gonna grab it. Um, I've been
I
huge.
wait every year for the Scream Factory big sale
Oh
that
yeah,
they usually do in like September.
yep.
And then it's just like, it's 50% off. Scoop.
Same thing. Vinegar Syndrome, Synapse, Severin. Yep, I do all the same ones, and it's like, especially the Easter sale from Arrow. Oh, I
Mhm.
go crazy with that sale.
Yep.
Now that they're discounting box sets at half off.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Oh yeah.
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 Like
I mean, it's not great in the context of like, they have the sales because stuff is sitting around. That's why sales happen. They need to move inventory. So that's not a great sign for physical media. But at the same time, physical media is becoming a little more niche, and that's why it's more expensive, because instead of printing a million units of things now, they might print 10,000 units. So that's why the price goes up and up and up and up and up.
yep,
But generally you also now are getting cool things on the Blu-ray. So there's usually like extra commentary or like behind the scenes stuff, deleted scenes. So like they just put out a few years ago, they put out for the first time ever the 76 King Kong,
hmm
and they had remastered it and everything, and I was just like, holy crap. There's like 45 minutes of extra footage that they put on, that was a lot of old TV footage that had never been seen since it was on TV back in the day.
hmm
And not just like throwaway stuff, like actual ape stuff,
real,
like
yeah.
tons of freaking footage. And I'm just sitting there watching this like I'm 8, like this is unbelievable. I have not seen this stuff since I was 8 years old. So, it's more expensive, but you're getting a better product too. And so that makes it really fun.
It's like when Halloween came out a couple of years ago, when they finally put the TV cut edition on it and
Yeah,
on Stream Factories. And I was like, dude, I remember I had that on tape. I recorded it from
sure.
the TV
We all did.
station, and I'm like, and that tape got worn out, and then you got sad when that tape don't play no more,
Yep.
and you're sitting there trying to like tape it back together because it got snagged.
You want to know one of the funniest things ever? So I'm a big Jaws fan, right? But I was too young to see that stuff in the theater.
Mhm.
So my experience with Jaws was when VHS came around. Of course, we
Mhm.
could rent the tape, so I got to rent
Yep.
Jaws. But then I found out that there was Jaws 2, but that wasn't available to rent, but it was on TV. So I recorded it one time, but I recorded it about 30 minutes in. So my recording started when they find the big killer whale that was
Oh
eaten,
yeah.
and he's sitting on the beach. So I would watch Jaws 2 for years from that point and not the beginning. So I missed everything at the beginning, including the part where he attacks the ski boat,
Yep.
and she dumps gas and blows him up, and he gets all burned, right? So
hmm
without that context, without that understanding, when I saw the shark later in the movie and he was burned up,
Yep.
I thought it was the original shark that exploded and came
Oh yeah.
back to life,
First
right? I
one.
was like,
Yeah.
oh, that's clearly just explosion damage from the first movie. So I thought it was the first shark. And it wasn't until years and years and years and years, maybe decades later, that I finally saw the whole thing. And I was like, Jesus Christ, this like changes the whole experience for me. And it was good. I liked it. But yeah, that was a really wild period because I had no idea what was going on in that movie. But I was a dumb kid, so it didn't matter.
Well, I mean, we watched Nightmare on Elm Street, and we
Yeah,
watched Jason and Texas Chainsaw, and
yeah.
we're okay. I mean, I don't know mentally if we're okay, but we survived, and I don't have any nightmares anymore of it. But
Not anymore. Anymore.
but that's
Anymore is the key phrase. Yeah. No, I got Jason fucked me up. Part 2 specifically, because at the end of the movie, when he comes blasting through the window,
oh yeah, jumps through in
after
his
they had,
face.
yeah, after they had like taken the thing off of him in his house, and they had like hacked him with the knife and the
Yep.
and then at the end it's the big shock, like psh, he comes through the window. So I had just rearranged my room days before so that my bed was right under the window, like
Mm-hmm.
heading under the window. So I'm laying there in the bed just like looking at the window like, this is not going to work, I cannot be under the window. So Jason screwed me up, and I had to redesign my room again. Jaws screwed me up. I do not go in the ocean. It's not happening. I don't go water skiing. It's not happening. It screwed me up. There's no question it screwed me up. But it's I don't feel as though I'm screwed up and missing out. I still enjoy the things that I enjoy, and if I don't water ski, I don't water ski. Whatever. I'll go out on the boat. I'm not worried about him attacking the boat. That I got that covered.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm competent enough to be able to put the gas on the boat and go.
until you're down in the panhandle of Florida and you start seeing things swimming next to you, and you're like,
Oh,
shit, no, time to go.
yeah. I've seen, there was a video I just saw the other day with a guy in a kayak, and he was in a kayak out on the ocean, and he's filming straight ahead, and there's like just kind of splash, 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 and then a freaking tiger shark just comes out of the water and tries to eat his boat. It's basically a Hooper moment, right? Where
Oh
the
yeah.
thresher shark eats his boat. This freaking shark just is like, well, I'm going to eat your boat, and just bites the boat. Like, good Lord. Good Lord. What are you people doing on kayaks in the ocean? I can't help you if you're not helping yourself.
No,
this is on you, man.
There's some common sense approaches that you got to use. And a tiger shark is naturally aggressive. They're going to attack you if they see you. They don't give a damn if you're a human being or a seal.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
And what's scary about those ones, though, they can go from ocean water into fresh water, too. I've seen them up in the damn Mississippi River doing that. So I'm like, hell no.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like gators in the swamp. You stay out of the gators. You stay out of the swamp for a reason.
Gators. Jesus Christ.
Well, I'm a redneck, so I live in Texas, so if that tells you anything.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you this. I am doing, this will be part of our 15-year anniversary in 2025. I am doing a shark book. It is, I describe it as, what if Jaws 5 happened for real? Because in my brain, I've had a Jaws 5 story, like what it could be, what it should be, what it might be. Here's Jaws 5. Universal does not care. So I just a couple of years ago, I was like, okay, forget it. I'm just going to modify what I need to modify and tell this story, because it's still, I think, a relevant shark story within how we work now as a society. So I've made the appropriate changes. So instead of Amity Island, it is called Harmony Island. So Jaws people will get it. They'll be like, yeah, I get it. I see what you're doing there. But at the same time, it's, I want it to be accessible, again, like we've talked about, accessible for people that don't know Jaws, right? To them, it's just a shark book. So it has to work on both levels. And we put out a preview of it. We did an 8-page preview book. And the book's called It's Only an Island If You Look at It from the Water. So we put out the preview book, and I got reactions from people who are not Jaws people. Their exposure to the franchise is very, very minimal. And they were like, yeah, this works. Like, all of this works. And I was like, well, thank God, because, every page is Easter eggs. I mean, every 8 pages, every page is freaking Easter eggs of stuff. But it's apparently presented in such a way that it doesn't matter that they don't know, like Brody's big watchtower, right? Is one of the big splash pages. People from Jaws will be like, I know what that is. But people that don't know it are going to look at it and they're going to understand the context just within that story. They'll just be like, oh, okay. So people are going up and taking selfies and doing, like, it makes sense to them in a different context. Jaws people are going to be like, dude, he's got everything in here. But, and that's for them. That's supposed to be there.
Yeah.
But the people that are like, I don't know what Jaws is. This is a cool book. Yes, that's really the key. And so we're actually going to release that, ideally, in a perfect world. We're going to release that as what they call an OGN, or an original graphic novel. So instead of just issues, like 1 through 5 issues, we're just going to do like 120 pages, big book, and just put the thing out. And it'll be our first ever OGN. So Jason Hay here, who's been doing a lot of stuff for us, he is working. Well, he did the 8-page preview, and so as I've been working on the script, he's got a couple of things that he's doing, and then as soon as he's done with that, he's just going to work on it in the background so that it's just happening, and when we get to 2025, kaboom. Oh, also, I didn't even know this until I thought about it. 2025 is also the 50th anniversary of Jaws.
Yes.
So I was like, God, that just has to happen now. I mean, this just has to happen. Yeah. And incidentally, for those that care, in July, I think it's July 25th or something like that. It's the 40th anniversary of Jaws 3.
I can't believe it's that old.
Amazing, right? 1983, that thing came out. Yeah.
We're old.
Dude, it's not good. It's not good.
It is funny because, like, when I go watch Jaws, I've got the Universal, the Media Book 1 that came out like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's the Jaws I watch. I haven't got the 4K yet.
You got it. Oh, dude. Let me tell you, I was very anti 4K. And I had just bought the 40th anniversary or the 35th anniversary or something Blu-ray that came out.
Mm-hmm.
So it had been a while, maybe 10 years, because this came out for the 45th anniversary, and I was like, I don't need this again. Like, I already have this. Like, it's just there. But they did put out a steelbook, and I've been big on collecting steelbooks.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, I still don't want this because I'm not paying $40 for this. But it went on sale on Best Buy for $20, and I was like, oh, $20, I'm going to buy a steelbook. That's fine.
Yep.
I will pay this for the steelbook. And I watched the thing. I didn't even watch 4K. I just watched the standard restoration version of it on my regular Blu-ray player.
Yeah.
And holy God, what a difference. I mean, honestly, amazing, amazing, amazing. So I'm telling you now, you don't have to buy it new or anything, but if you go on eBay, you can find like a used copy. It will 100% be worth your buy. 100%.
Yeah, see, I buy the boutique labels like Cinemuseums, like stuff like that. Titans of Cult, that stuff. So I've got the Cinemuseum on order, and I cannot wait to get it because it actually comes with a megalodon tooth. And I was like, I want that. That's my Jaw, and that'll be my Jaws forever.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
because I'm done. At that point. Now,
that's what I said. I was like, I'm buying the Steelbook. This is my forever Jaws. However, we all know there's going to be something in a couple of years for the 50th. So God knows what that's going to be. They'll be like, oh, here's all this extra footage that we just found in the archive.
A TV cut, a work print.
Yeah. Oh, did you hear about the guys who found, I think it was in Brazil, they found a Brazilian videotape that had extra Jaws 2 footage on it.
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah. Yeah, and you can just see the footage. You just Google it on Google. But yeah, there's a couple extra scenes that apparently no one knew existed, and they got slipped into this Brazilian or Portuguese or some weird country's release, and it's just like a 2-minute thing. It's like no big deal, but like where the hell did that come from? And with Jaws 2 actually celebrates 45 years next year.
Mm-hmm.
They're talking about doing something special for it. And there is a wild amount of deleted scenes, altered scenes, not to mention the movie they started filming
The
before
original
they
version.
stopped and
Yeah.
refilmed. Like, could you imagine if they were just like, here, guys? Oh my God, my head would explode. Because I'm actually a fan of Jaws too. Like
I
I enjoy the movie a lot.
I enjoy the bad cinematics.
Yeah, sure.
Like you can tell exactly what they're like. That ain't a shark.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. But
I
like,
enjoy that
I
part.
have these arguments on these shark pages all the time, and I'm like, you got to understand, like, you can't compare 2 to 1. Like, they're just different movies, right?
Yeah.
Like, Jaws 1 it's not even a shark movie. Jaws 1 is a fishing movie. Like, that's it. It's a shark shows up and they go and get it. Like, that's Jaws 1. Jaws 2 is a slasher movie.
Yeah.
Jaws 2 is a legitimate, like, the shark comes in and decides to eat people regularly. It's a slasher movie. And if you look at it as a slasher movie, it's a slasher movie with a John Williams soundtrack, which
Yeah.
is awesome. And I'm like, this is super, super, super fun. So, and that's where my book, it's only an island if you look at it from the water. That's where the bulk of my sort of reference comes from, because the lead character is Jackie, the screamer girl, the scream queen of the book. She's the lead character of my book. Basically 45 years later. So she's like an old lady. She's like 60 in her 60s now, whatever. But yeah, Jaws 2 is sort of the direct connect. But we'll talk about everything. Jaws 1, Jaws 2. Honestly, really, I mean, it's like I said, this is Jaws 5. So I have figured out a continuity base for the whole thing, even using 3 and 4 to then come out on the other end and be like, okay, here we are with Jaws 5. So hopefully it'll be fun.
The question of the day: you gonna bring back Rob Schneider?
Rob Schneider. Oh, you mean not Rob Schneider. Rob Schneider is the comedy actor.
Not Rob Schneider.
Scheider.
Scheider. Yeah.
Scheider. No, he is Mr. Brody is dead. Mr. Brody
Oh,
is dead.
come on.
Because that's continuity.
I know it is.
He's dead as of issue 4, as of episode 4. So he's definitely dead. There's not really a reason to bring him back either, because he would be super old at this point anyway. So whether you use that continuity where he had a heart attack, in the whatever it was in the late 90s or the early 90s, use that continuity, or you just have him die off. Like Lorraine Gary is still around, but at least I think she is. But she's like in her 80s now, easily. Yeah. So those are the kind of the characters that you sort of want to pay tribute to and sort of be like, okay, Roy Scheider, Lorraine Gary, the Brodies, we're going to definitely talk about you guys, but it's Jackie, who's not named Jackie. In fact, I named her Donna after Donna Wilkes, the actress, because I had to change everybody's name, because I can't use their names. And I was having a real hard time figuring out a name that sounded like Jackie. And I was like, wait a minute, I'll just call her Donna, because Donna Wilkes is the actress. And I was like, that's brilliant. I'm just going to call her Donna. So it's basically it's her, and she comes back to the island. She has shark information. Mike Brody is there. His kid, Thea, is part of the story. So we kind of do it that way in those sort of realms. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to watch that fine line before you're getting sued over it.
Yes.
Because Universal's not fun to play with, I've heard.
Yeah. No, we'll I mean, ultimately I would love for them to get it, get the book and be like, hey, we could do this. Like, let's make Jaws 5. Exactly. Tom just gave us Jaws 5. Let's just do it. I'd be like, I don't even care, man. Just take the thing and make it, and just make sure that I get to be on set. Like, I'm telling you right now, Universal, if you want this book, you can have it. Okay. My only stipulation is I want a writer credit, and I want to get eaten by the shark. That's it. I don't care about anything else.
I want to tape that. If you do, I want to tape that.
That's it. That's all I want. Like when we almost sold Legend of Oz as a TV show. And I told the guy, I was like, look, whatever the contract normally says, that's fine. Let's talk about the contract. But I want one more thing. And I want that one more thing to be, because in issue 1, Dorothy takes on the flying monkeys, and the flying monkeys are basically just a bunch of cowboy dudes who are
Hmm.
drunk, and then they transform magically into the flying monkeys. But she gets into a fight with one of them and just puts him out like with a punch. I was like, that's me. That scene is in the show, and she has to punch me out. That's in my contract that I get punched out by Dorothy, like in addition to whatever else we're doing. So I have very simple wants and needs for my for my adaptions of things. But Universal, I will send you a copy once we're done. If you like it, you can have it. I just want to get eaten by the shark. That's it. This is very simple, easy things.
So you're saying the Legend of Oz almost got picked up? What happened?
Basically, it was Hollywood, right? It's just
Mm,
Hollywood, and the
yeah.
guy who was helping me sell it, this is what he told me. He was like, "Look, this is how Hollywood works. You go up a ladder as far as you can go, and more often than not, you won't make it to the top rung." And then you fall down the ladder and you start another ladder and you do it again. So in this particular case, we had guys that were looking at it, and when we got to that top rung, the guys that were supposed to say yes or no, um, one guy was like, literally he was like, westerns don't sell. And I'm like, do you understand the history of Hollywood at all? Do you understand how westerns are in everything? Do you understand that
John
Star
Wayne,
Wars
Clint
is a western?
Eastwood.
I mean, it's mad. It was madness. It was just like, I can't even talk to you. The other guy literally was just like, oh, fucking get it. And I'm like, what don't you get? Like, I have a storyboard thing in front of you, panel by panel, scene by scene. Dorothy Gale shoots monkeys, yellow brick road. Like, how can I help you get it? I'm here to help you get it, but you got to tell me what you don't get. But these guys were just like, yeah, no. And so the guy that was helping me sell it, he was like, yeah, I mean, this is pretty normal. But what was really crazy is we got way farther kind of than we expected. We even were talking with Catherine McPhee about being Dorothy. Um, she was on the show Nashville for a while,
Hmm.
and she was, of course, for those that know, she was on American Idol. She sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow, and so that was where we kind of connected it, because we were kind of like, hey, if we could get like an actress that could sing, we could put a little bit of, we could put a little bit of music into this thing too, which would be awesome. And so Catherine McPhee was being talked about as, hey, let's get her. And I was like, God damn right, put her on this thing. So, it was really interesting how fast it went. And I mean, the guy that was selling it, he was literally looking at me like, dude, we might pull this off. Like, this might be a real thing. And I was like, okay, let's go. And it was, what was crazy was, it was the thought process was even to the point where it was going to play after The Walking Dead. Like, it had even reached to that point where they were like, where do we put this thing? And it was like, well, let's drop it after The Walking Dead and we can run it. I was like, what the hell is going on? Like, how perfect would that be? Jesus. And then we got to the top, and the top executives dropped the ball, and
Mm.
and here we are without it. But it is what it is.
Well, that's what happened to my favorite story. So I'm a huge Stephen King fan,
Huh?
but The Dark Tower was one of my favorite series that he ever
Sure.
wrote.
Yeah, yeah.
And to see it be in development hell the way it's been forever and ever and ever, like we get a crappy movie out of it.
Yeah.
Uh, and then the story was supposed to be put on HBO for the last 10 years,
Mm,
but guess what? Last of Us took that spot.
yeah.
And I'm like, okay, so I'm never going to see that story. So it's interesting to hear, like, it's in the same kind of boat. Like, you see these
Sure.
things go way up there, gets to that point, and then it stops, and you're going to start all over. But then it's like, how much time and effort do you put into that
Yeah.
versus your actual story?
Yeah, I just have to keep going. I mean,
Yeah.
literally, that's it. I just have to keep going. And it's like he told me, it's like, it has to be the right person in the right place at the right time. I mean, if you watch these things on Netflix, the movies that made us, I'm sure you've
Hmm.
seen those things.
Yep.
Almost every one of those is like, yeah, we got canned like 4 times, and then some miracle happened, and we got to make the movie. So, it literally is just right person that believes in it at the right time at the right studio. So it's difficult. Um but for me, I've always said, like, I'm here to make comics. I mean, this is my goal. Is I want to be a writer. I want to write comics. I want to write good comics. This is what I want to do for my living. And then should we be able to turn it into a TV show or a cartoon or movie or whatever, that's great. But that's really just the icing on the cake that is building my comic stuff, right? I want that to be always that foundation. So um I getting the toy done for Critter is a big first step into sort of like legitimizing us in a way, because now we have like real merch. It's not just like, hey, we've got little acrylic,
Yeah,
guys. Like, no, we have real honest to God toys now. Or we will soon. And so that will help sort of change some perception for us when those things start hitting in people's hands, when they start getting put on the Comic-Con tables and so on. People are wandering by like, whoa, there's a freaking Critter toy. Yeah, man, there's a Critter toy. So and then of course executive replicas, they're like, yeah, what do you want to do next? So I'm like, well, let's put the first one out. Let's get them in people's hands, and then we'll make another one. But they're ready to do more. So they're happy with it. I'm sure we will all be happy with it once we have it. And now it's real merch, and that changes the perception of a company. It changes the perception of a brand, a character, all those things, because now it's more than just some guy made a comic. Now it's, hey, this is like a real toy thing. So yeah, it's all timing, and again, in a couple of years, we'll be traveling the country for our 15-year anniversary tour. I think that will give us a little more credibility, because, hey, here's these guys that are been around doing this for 15 years, man. That's no small feat, being around for 15 years. I mean, there's comic companies that have come in and gone since we have been doing this for 13 years. There was a company called Double Take that came in. They had millions of dollars. They had an IP that they were using, the Night of the Living Dead zombie stuff.
Oh yeah.
They lasted 2 years and were gone. I don't have millions of dollars. You want to give me millions of dollars? You want to see what I can do with millions of dollars? Give me millions of dollars. We'll shake up the world with millions of dollars over here. But in the meantime, we'll just keep doing it the way that we do it.
Which is funny because, like, American mythology, they took over Night of the Living Dead. They're taking on a lot of
Well,
these.
Living Dead is public domain.
Correct.
Anyone can use it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what they've done is freaking amazing. If you go, they do a Kickstarter for it, and then they sell it in the comic shop as well,
Sure.
an LCS version.
Yep.
And it works out great. Merc does the same thing. They do
Yep.
their LCS versions, and they do their special editions on Kickstarter.
Yep.
And that gets it out to two different kinds of customers. It gets it out to
Totally.
Kickstarter people, and it gets it out to your LCS. Because if you put up like Night of the Living Dead, or like I bought Silent Night, Deadly Night, the comic.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, dude, I remember reading this, watching this movie in the 80s, and then I'm like, all right, come on, get to part 2. I want to say Garbage Day. I want to see it in the comic book. I want to hear him say it's Garbage Day. But to see that kind of stuff in comics and seeing it pushed through is phenomenal from my perspective, because it keeps that IP alive. It keeps those stories fresh, especially if somebody's never read or never watched Night of the Living Dead or Dawn of the Dead, But my biggest issue with that, though, is that you can only tell the story so many times.
Yes.
Before it gets convoluted.
You've got to keep the story evolving. It can't just it's like I just had this conversation today too. We were talking about Evil Dead and Evil Dead Rise, which we both liked it, but for me, I was like, I can't keep supporting just evil showing up somewhere else. Like, okay, now we're in the city. Well, now we're in Florida. Well, now we're in Canada. Like, I don't care anymore. Like, it's fine, but I need something else. I need a story here. I need to put something together for all of these things. And what I liked about the new Evil Dead was there was some world building in it, where they talked about, spoiler alert, 3, 2, 1, the three Necronomicons, the 3 books of the dead. So I like that there was some world building where they could actually come into a second movie now and take it from that one to the next one, talk about these books, and sort of run toward like a finale of some sort.
Yeah, an actual
And
ending.
actually have like a trilogy of some kind, or at least an ongoing story that has story that builds. Because while I like the Evil Dead Rise, it was just the same thing. It's just like, okay, I'll swallow your soul, I guess. It's like I've been here, it's fine, but I'm not getting like I'm not getting like super excited about it, because and I think this is part of why I'm so critical of movies and stuff too, is because I'm a writer, and so I kind of feel like, okay, what would I do with this? Like, how would I make this thing work? And that's not really a great way to come at entertainment. Like, you should be coming at entertainment and sort of accepting it for what it is. But in the context of Evil Dead Rise, we've already got 4 other movies. And so when you give me 4 movies and this is the 5th, and really the only difference is the setting. I mean, it was so filled with just tributes and throwbacks and Easter eggs, that it's like it's new, but it's not. It it's kind of like the Meg, right? The
Oh
Meg
yeah,
was just filled with Jaws stuff in it. It's like, do you want to be Jaws or do you want to be the Meg? Well, we want to be Jaws
ish.
first, and then we'll be the Meg. And I'm like, okay, that's fine, I guess, but we're not tapping the audience properly here. We're not giving them what they deserve. So with Evil Dead Rise, I think it was good. I like that they're playing it straight and not campy. That's a difference. But now we need a story. Now we need, why are there 3 books? Where did they come from? Some people are calling for Ash's return. I don't necessarily think that that's necessary. I wouldn't be
No.
against it, but I don't think that's necessary. It might throw off what they've done with the last 2 movies as playing it straight for the most part. I would probably be okay with it if it happened, but I don't care if it happens. I just want a story. Like, build your story, man. That was what the great thing between Evil Dead 2 and then Army of Darkness. You
Yeah.
built the story, you gave us more. And then you got the TV show, built the story. So even though you were kind of still getting the same things, same sort of tropes and so on, you were still building the story and building the world and adding to it along the way. And that's kind of what I'm hoping they'll do now with this, straight Evil Dead, the non-campy version, is be like, okay, let's tell some freaking horror stories, man, and build a world here, because I think it would be incredible. I love the opening sequence. It was great, and she's floating above the lake and stuff. I'm like, God damn, this is creepy, man. But then it just kind of, like I said, it just kind of fell into its old tropes, and they're fine.
And that's hard because I mean, like, I'm a huge Evil Dead fan. That's my favorite trilogy of all time. But the 3 Necronomicon, that's already been done. That's been done in Army of Darkness.
Sure, yeah. Well, I think there were even 4. Weren't there 4
3
on the thing? Were there just 3?
Just 3.
So yeah. So again, that's like it's just like I'm talking about. It's like they're throwing it back to what we've already seen, right? The difference here, though, is that in Army of Darkness, there were 3 Necronomicons, but only 1 was real.
Exactly.
In the new version, they're literally saying there are 3 books of the dead.
Yeah.
So again, you've got a potential, like Indiana Jones, like, let's go find the other books and, get, like, do we put them together? Like, is that the good thing? Do we separate them? Is that the good thing? Like, how do they work? What does each one do? Like, there's so much world building you could do for a new franchise, a new trilogy, or whatever you want to call it. And that's what I'm looking for as a both as an audience member now and as a writer, looking at it going, okay, that was good, but what if we added something? And I think it might sort of level it up.
Well, and it's like, if you remember the end of Ash versus Evil Dead, he's in the future.
He's in the future, yeah.
Again. He's in the future again, but he's actually like in a Mad Max situation with Deadites.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, but they kind of alluded to it though in Ash vs. Evil Dead that there is more than one Necronomicon.
Sure.
Because they were talking about the Druids, having multiple books. It's like, I can see how that can tie in, but maybe that is where the finale is. the finale catches back up to Ash in the future, and then they
Oh my
finally
god.
kill the actual real Kandarian demon, and then
Oh
we're done.
god.
And then the
That's
Necronomicons
funny.
die, or something.
Yeah.
Because that was always the trope around this series is that you can never destroy the Necronomicon. Period. You
Right.
can never tear it apart. You
Right.
never get. I'm like, okay, when is it going to be where they actually just find something to say? Okay, now we can actually destroy it.
You're right. Right.
You
Yeah. And I
know.
mean, writers can write shit. I mean, just
Yeah.
they can come up with something. Um, or you could have a finale, similar to Cabin in the Woods, where
Oh
no, we
yeah,
fucked up.
we fucked up. Reset.
Yeah. Everything is terrible now. So and I wouldn't even be against that. I love weird, screwed up endings like that. Like if you can come at me with like, yeah, we're not giving you the happy ending. I'm usually way happier with a non-happy ending, because I don't expect it. We're so attuned to everything working out in the end, and oh yeah, we'll get there. We'll be safe.
See, like they could have did a Cabin in the Woods too automatically after they got done with the first one.
I would have loved. I mean, it would be hard to do because we know the result. But I would have loved to have seen Cabin in the Woods, like Cabin in the Woods Japan and Cabin in the Woods Sweden, and just tell old weird monster stories. I
Yeah.
mean, we would know that they succeeded because obviously, Cabin in the Woods, killed the world.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, they could do a dead world, trying to somehow put the monsters back in the box. I mean, that's perfectly doable.
I'd
But
love to see it because, like,
yeah.
when you saw every monster in every cage get let loose, and you're like, oh hell, that's like the worst nightmare you could ever have. Period. Everything's out. Everything is
Yeah.
out. The
That's
snakes out.
that's like the only part of that movie that's actually a flaw. Like it's so good, but there's literally no reason to have a big red button that you can push to let all the monsters out. Like from a writing standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, there's no rationale for a purge, let them all out. Like purge, kill them all, that I get. But like purge and oh yeah, they're all out now. Like what the hell? That's the only real flaw in the film. But whatever. You had to get them all out. You needed that moment. Somehow you had to get them out. So whatever.
Mhm.
Just push the button. It's fine.
But that's kind of the hard part. Like, they don't really make stories like that anymore. It's like the last couple of horror movies I've watched, like recent ones, um, like the phone call. The phone call was a great movie from Shutter. Shutter does amazing ones. A24 Film's been doing some great ones.
Yeah, A24's done some stuff. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's not that, like, you're gonna remember it forever. It's not like it's not a Halloween. It's not an Evil Dead. It's not, and maybe it's because our generation of people that watch TV and movies is different than today's generation.
Oh,
And so, like,
far.
so they're growing up with this stuff, whereas we're looking kind of like for some nostalgic pieces to it
yeah,
a little bit,
yeah,
but it's like,
anybody that grew up in the 70s, 80s, and 90s, we had real creation happening. I mean, we live in a society now that is nostalgic for everything that we grew up with. And it's because everything was new at that point. But
mhm,
now, when you try and make something new, it's really hard because
yeah,
there's so much content. It's super, super hard. And so you have to kind of do things like the Paranormal Activity movies, right?
yep,
You kind of have to ghost stories aren't new, but the way that they filmed them in these
mhm,
cases is new, right? When you do something like oh my god, what examples are we going to have? Like the Purge is really a good way to do. I mean, it's super simple, but it's a great idea, and it is an amazing, what is it, 5 movies now? It's an
5
amazing
so far.
progression of like 5 movies, through it all, through the continuity. Well, one of them goes back to the front, that's the first Purge, but
Yep.
it's an amazing idea, and amazing continuity that goes through all of this stuff. Like the last movie is just bonkers how like this could be us in 10 years. Like it's so real. Even though it's completely wackadoo, it's still so close to being like this could be us in 10 years. So the Purge is great, but when you're trying to do like slasher stuff and things like, I mean, you can't even remake them anymore because the people that are remaking them are not, with very rare exception, like the Evil Dead we just talked about is a pretty good reimagining or rebooting or whatever. But like when you look at things like Halloween, the most recent Halloween trilogy, holy shit, that was trash. I mean, that was, and I don't even care that John Carpenter was like, thumbs up, man. Like, I don't care. Like, that was all trash. The first one was okay. It was okay, except it was super derivative of H2O.
Yeah.
But it was okay. It was tolerable. But the second and third one were straight garbage. And so, you know, you can't just come in, even when they did Friday the 13th, they remade it, remade Friday the 13th. The first movie was basically just 1, 2, and 3 squashed together with, you know, some modifications. So it's like you're not even coming in with like really fresh ideas to take these slasher guys and be like, how do we use them in a modern sense? Like there's not even a thought process for that. It's just, well, let's just put them back on the screen because everybody loves them. It's like,
Well,
diminishing returns.
Like Fede Alvarez did an amazing job with Evil Dead remake in 2010. I'm
absolutely.
Like, when he brought in Mia and made her the evil person, you know, and it was an homage to Ash to like being possessed, and then he got rid of the possession, you know. But literally, Mia had to die and come back to life, you know, and then it resulted in her being able to stop everything. Like that was a fresh take, and then like there was no campiness to that,
right?
You know, she was a drug addict. She was having problems, and because of her way her system was, nobody believed her.
Yeah,
you know, and
it was that's what I'm saying. Like with rare exception, and that's a great exception. That was a fantastic movie. They actually remade Blair Witch too. Did you ever see the remake of Blair Witch?
Yep.
That, and it was just like a regular movie. It wasn't like weird Steadicam stuff. Like that was a good movie. So, but in that case, it was less of a remake, like what Fede did. You know, to kind of reimagine it. It was just filmed differently, but it was really good.
But it was
but you know, we fetishize these slasher guys, Freddy and Jason and Michael and you know, all these guys. Even I don't know if you remember, did you ever see the Mutilator back in the day? Yeah, so that's getting a sequel.
Yeah, Mutilator too. I heard about that.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna watch the Mutilator's getting a sequel. That's gonna be, oh my god, I can't even deal with that. But like, you know, if someone were to come to me and be like, okay, like how do you fix Michael Myers? Like, I don't think you do.
You don't.
I don't think you can just be like, let's put Michael Myers in 2025. Like it just doesn't work. Especially it doesn't work when you're playing the timeline game, because with Michael above Freddy and Jason, he's a dude, right? And there's a timeline of age for him. Now, granted, if he's evil, like age doesn't matter, right? You can write around that. You can be like, well, he's 80 years old, but he's filled with evil. You know, okay, fine. He can still be kind of dramatic. But at some point, like you're going to age yourself out. So I feel like, you know, with Freddy and Jason, you can kind of do them infinitely, except that with Freddy is Robert Englund. You cannot recast that guy. So once Englund is gone, like dead, Freddy's dead. I mean, there's no way you're going to recast it and have anybody accept it.
And it's
with
hard.
Jason, it's a little easier because you got the mask. People like Kane Hodder, but it is still the mask, so you can kind of do whatever you want with that. You know, the slasher thing was a moment in time, and we all loved it. But I don't think it translates now. I don't think it's not that people don't like the characters, but I don't think you can just be like, well, let's just do this in 2025, and it doesn't work. Phones are different, the internet's different, like everything's different, you know. And that was one of the scary parts of the 80s is like, if you're fucked, you're fucked. Like you can't call anybody, you can't take pictures, you can't use your phone to light up a room. Like you're done, you're over.
You're dead. You're nailed to the door, and they're swinging you around.
That's right. That's right. That's right. So yeah, it's just different times. So someone's gonna have to come up with a way to do a 2025 slasher. But I don't know. I don't know what it's going to be. Because every time they try and do these things modern, like werewolves and vampires and stuff, it just becomes these horrible teen dramas. And it's like, who's watching this crap? I mean, somebody must, because some of these things work. Like Vampire Diaries works for a while, and Twilight was a big thing. But none of us that grew up with this stuff are watching those things, so it's a completely different audience, and that's fine. You want to get that audience into horror, but
Not like
if
that
they're
though.
coming in with Twilight, I don't know how that translates to like the Lost Boys or John Carpenter's Vampire. I don't know how the translation is. It's like
Exactly.
watching a Godzilla movie now. Like I went with Allison Lear to go see Godzilla King of the Monsters, the new one. And it was so good, and she really liked it. It was her first ever Godzilla movie, and I was like, I'm really sorry, because I don't know how you can go backwards now and watch dudes in suits like bump into each other and
1954s.
like be excited about it.
Go watch the Toho versions and like, oh
Yeah,
man,
it's like
not even the
I
American ones, the Japanese ones.
yeah, I think you're spoiled now. I don't know if you can ever appreciate the old stuff, but like the way that I do. So, but that is what it is. It is what it is. Audiences are audiences, and what I find interesting is that Hollywood doesn't seem to be able to decide to make much new anymore. Everything is a reboot, retcon, reimagining of some IP that already exists, and with very spotty up and down results. And that's a shame. That's a shame that like, for example, 65. Did you see 65 this year?
Uh-huh.
Fucking phenomenal. I love that movie. And nobody went and saw that thing.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, Kylo Ren versus dinosaurs? Why are you not in the theater? But nobody went and saw it. I'm like, God, this is why we don't get new stuff. It's because you guys don't go see new stuff, even when
Well,
it's like made for the big screen.
it's like Nicolas Cage. I mean, he is a huge horror guy right now. Like if you've watched Pig, The Color and the Space, dude, I watched the Willy one in Wonderland. I'm like, not one word, not one word in the whole movie from this guy. He's just beating the shit out of Five Nights at Freddy's stuff all night long, killing stuff, and I'm like, this is freaking awesome, And it's just, and then I went and watched The Witch, and The Witch is phenomenal. That's probably one of my favorite movies I've seen in a long time was The Witch and Host.
The Witch didn't do anything for me. So a couple of recent ones that people were like, you got to watch. So The Witch did nothing for me. Midsummer did nothing for me.
No,
Uh, blah, 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 blah. I don't know. There's been a few that have been like, dude, these are really good, and I'm like, it's not working for me. Not working for me. I'm trying to think of something else. Like I haven't seen. I saw X, but I haven't seen Pearl yet, and I want
yeah,
to.
the sequel,
I want, and then there's a third one coming, right?
There's a third one coming too.
It's not out yet though.
No, not
Okay.
till next year, I think.
Okay, all right. So yeah, I do want to see those.
I love the premise of X. I mean, just the storyline, it hooked you in. Like you were like, even if you're not even a straight horror fan, that was a good story to pull other people into it.
Well, I'll tell you what blew me away was just the filming of it. Like it looked and felt like something out of the late 70s and early 80s. Just all the whole sense of it. I loved the part that really blew my mind was such a brilliant filming moment when they're at the very beginning, and it's kind of cropped like it's old TV, because now everything's widescreen. But back in the old days, boys and girls, it used
Full
to be
frame.
a little TV screen like this. So there was this shot where everything was like in this whole thing like this. And then they're looking out at like the police car or whatever, and it starts to expand like this because they're going outside of the barn doors, because you're in a barn, and that's where you're getting that crop, and they're going out, and then it expands as you're going outside into like the widescreen. And I was like, fuck, that's just like so good. That's so good. It's so smart. But that stuff is lost on the current audience because they didn't grow up with TV screens that are squares,
Yeah.
so that's, to them, it's like, I don't even know what that means, but to us, like, that's such a cool sort of like throwback to the way we used to watch horror movies, on TV for it's Halloween week and we got, The Howling is on and it's all cropped,
Yeah.
and we didn't know what we were missing.
Well, and that's the funny part. Like, you remember we used to have like every day for like the 31 days of horror.
Sure.
ABC had
Yeah.
it on NBC. You could watch Nightmare on Elm Street, Friday the 13th. You could watch Hellraiser, but it was always on very, very late because
And all that stuff is super edited. I mean, like,
oh yeah,
super edited. Poltergeist and The
I
Howling, and
mean,
it's just like, yeah, just like super edited versions of everything. So yeah, the VHS, changed the world.
all my and that's what threw me for the biggest loop was when I watched American Werewolf in London
Hmm.
on tape for the
On
first
tape,
time. Versus TV. I'm like,
sure.
wait a minute. Like the whole scene of him becoming the werewolf is a lot longer
Hmm.
on the tape. I'm like, dude, that makes so much more sense now. I didn't lose 10, 20 minutes.
Yeah, 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 yeah. We went through it all. We went through it all.
Yeah.
And we had no, our superhero movies were basically Superman and Superman 2.
Yeah, we don't talk about 3 and the Quest for
No,
Peace.
no, we don't. But
Or
I mean, we really
Supergirl.
had nothing else. We had some TV stuff. We had the Hulk. We had Wonder Woman was on TV in the 70s. We had Batman from the 60s.
$6
Uh,
million man.
$6 Million Man, Bionic Woman. Yeah, 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 yeah.
It wasn't until
It's a
Keaton
different
came
time.
out as Batman that we actually had a really good movie.
Yeah, yeah. It was a different time for all that stuff, and I don't know. People talking to me about how this is the golden age of superhero movies and stuff, and I'm like, I don't know, maybe, I guess. I would say I'm probably 50-50 on most of the movies that have come out now for Marvel, much less for DC in the last 20 years. But I understand why they say it is, because even Keaton's Batman is not what what's his name? The guy who did the Batman trilogy. What the hell's that
Oh,
guy's name?
Nolan.
Nolan. Keaton's Batman and Batman Begins, they're not the same things.
No.
But I would watch Keaton's Batman over Nolan's stuff any day of the week. It's not even question to me. Just because it was a perfect blend of realism, but with just enough comic book still in it, that it felt like a comic book.
Hmm.
Whereas Batman Begins, while it's good, it's all real, right? It's
Yeah.
like, I'm not into like the real superheroes, man. I want these guys to do crazy stuff. I want it all to look crazy. I want to see a bat wing. I don't want to see him just flying around a regular thing. Like, I want it to get weird with my superhero stuff. And so that's why some of these things, like, I remember when they were going to do Aquaman,
Hmm.
I was like, there is no way I am watching Aquaman unless they are riding seahorses. And then damned if they didn't put in giant seahorses.
They did.
Well, I guess I have to watch this movie now. And it was a bat crap crazy comic book movie.
It
I
was.
don't think it was very good, but it sure had a lot to look at. And I got to give him the credit for riding seahorses. That was wild, man. I got to give him that credit. So, it is what it is.
It reminded me of like the old episode of Super Friends.
Yeah,
Watching
yeah,
that movie,
absolutely.
it's like they're actually doing this. You got Aqualad, you got Aquaman, you got Mara. I'm like, okay, where's Lex Luthor? Where's the Hall of Justice
Yeah,
going to show up?
yeah.
Where's me? The Wonder Twins going to show up next. Um, and that's why it was kind of sad because I enjoyed the first Superman movie. I enjoyed Man of Steel. I think they put too much in it. It combined into it, into the story. But I think that was a good starting point. Where they really failed was Batman versus Superman. You put 8,000 things in one thing. You brought Wonder Woman in, Superman in, Doomsday in, Lex Luthor, Zod. I'm like, okay, enough's enough. This is not a Justice League movie, yet. And then, ironically, the Justice League movie was even worse than that.
Yeah.
Um, and nobody wants to touch Green Lantern because of the screw up that happened with that movie.
DC is, I've got my Christopher, I've got my Superman 1 and 2. That to me is still peak DC, followed by the Keaton Batman and Batman Returns. Modern DC stuff, I mean, there's just nothing there for me. And a lot of that's Snyder. Snyder is not a guy for me that I really have much attachment to. But oddly enough, Watchmen is one of my favorite movies, like in the superhero genre. Like that's so weird to me because I can't stand the comic book. Like I cannot stand it. I could never finish it. I don't know what the hell's going on here. But the movie was so good. Despite, some of the changes that they had to do with it. Movie was so good. And I'm like, this is Zack Snyder and this is the Watchmen. These are two things that I don't really like. And yet somehow this is one of my favorite superhero movies ever. So, he did great on that. I just watched 300 today, in fact, too. So, he's got a couple of things that I like, but I don't think that he has quite a touch for superheroes in the context of understanding like variation, right? Like his tone might work for Batman, but Man of Steel did not work for me at all. Like to me, that was not Superman, and it wasn't. It was Man of Steel, whatever. It's not Superman. It's not Pa Kent. It's like there was so much of that. It was just like. But we also have to remember that movie happened back at a time when there was a very real possibility that DC was about to lose Superman trademarks.
Correct.
To the family. It was a very, very real possibility.
Schuster wanted it back.
Yeah. And that's why the DC New 52 happened. Like everything was being reset so that if they lost those original trademarks, because back in the day, Superman didn't fly. He literally just jumped over buildings and stuff. So, so if they lost that stuff, they could have their version of it and just keep going. So a lot of that's the Snyder stuff was hey man, just in case, let's make some stuff that we can use if all that goes away. And so that's where a lot of that stuff came from. And so you kind of have to be like, okay, we understand Zach had to do this stuff to because it was required. But like, Superman is not a dark character. Wonder Woman is not a dark character.
Correct.
Flash, Aquaman, these are not dark characters in the context of like Batman, right? And so when everybody got together and we realized that everybody was just Snyderized, for these things, it's kind of like, I don't know if this makes sense, man. Like with the Avengers, you've got all of these personalities, and some of them are pseudo similar. Like, you've got kind of Banner and Stark that are kind of pseudo similar, but they still, one's Iron Man and one's the freaking Hulk. So they're very different in that way. But with Snyder, he kind of homogenized it all into like everything's dark, whatever you want to call it. And so I think a lot of it missed. And that's where the Justice League went bad. That's where Batman vs Superman went bad. Just the writing on that was weird, and Lex Luthor was terrible, or whatever. But to be perfectly honest, I'm not sold that Gunn is going to be able to save any of this. I'll reserve judgment until I see something, but his track record for me is similar to Snyder. Like there's a couple of things I like, and most of it I don't. So I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be an interesting next few years.
I like the Guardians movies. That's been about it. I watched the Suicide Squad. Not super impressed with it.
Yeah.
Peacemaker was good on HBO.
Everybody likes Peacemaker. I won't go near that. I just won't go near that.
But that's saying something though. When you have to take a wrestler to save a whole system.
But the Peacemaker to me is just Deadpool. Exactly. In its tone, not in the they're
Yeah.
not the same character or anything, but it's just sort of this nonsense, which is not for me, and that's fine if it's for other people, but it's not for me. And so when I saw that, and I like John Cena, I think John Cena is okay. Um, he I think he fit that perfectly, because like he was in the Bumblebee movie and he was fine, but he was clearly out of place.
He was.
He was not a good corporate soldier guy or whatever, corporal soldier guy. He wasn't terrible, but he was out of place. But in Peacemaker, he gets to just go,
Yeah.
and that's for him. He's a just go guy. So I can get it. I understand that.
So, with that being said, what are you excited to see though this year or next year come out?
Well, this year there's a bunch of stuff that's on the way. Indiana Jones. I want to see anything that's time travel. I'm going to take part in that. And Indiana Jones and time travel, or whatever it is that's going to be happening with this Dial of Destiny. I am all there for that. I have a sense that Barbie is going to be wildly, wildly successful. I don't think we still even have a clue what this movie is yet, but
No.
based on the trailers, like this is going to be something special. Because the people that made it have really paid attention to detail. I love the part where she's driving in her car, but she's like too big for the car. She's like all sitting like way up in the. I'm like, because that's how the dolls are. They don't fit in anything. I'm like, that's hysterical. She's like, did you bring your rollerblades? And they're like these crappy plastic. I'm like, God damn, it's either going to be so smart or so dumb.
Yeah.
And it's really, we don't know, but I'm leaning into the smart. I'm hopeful for it. Meg 2 is coming out. I don't know what we're going to get there. I know they showed too much for the trailer, way too much for the trailer, but again, it's a shark movie. I'll be there for the shark movie. Not sure what else is coming out. There's a bunch. I do want to see Oppenheimer. I think that'll be, again, Nolan's one of those guys that I don't really, he's very hit and miss, but this particular story, the atomic bomb story, that's interesting to me. So I think he'll probably do something interesting with it. I know there's a bunch of stuff coming out later this year, but I can't key in on it.
See, I'm looking forward to the Nun 2. Since
is that this the Nun 2 this year?
Yeah, December.
Yeah, and they just announced a fourth Conjuring.
Yep.
So we're getting at least one more of those, and those guys are great. I love those guys.
I love
Vera
James.
Vera and what's I can never remember his name. It's like so simple. It's like Paul.
Yeah, and he's actually in Sinister too, which is always funny. It's like you're in Sinister and you're in The Conjuring, so you are definitely typecasted for the rest of your career.
Well, and he's freaking Night Owl.
Yeah,
in Watchmen. Like, yes, yeah, and he's an Aquaman as well.
Yeah.
Orm. Yeah. He's great. I like those. I like those movies. There's a bunch of stuff that I know that's coming, and I can't think of any of it now. I know Aquaman 2 is later this year. I really don't care. It is getting so many bad reviews. I will see it probably just to laugh. Oh my God, I can't even think of what's coming. But I know I've had I've done movie shows this year where we talked about what's coming. Now I can't think of anything. But there's a few things. There's a few things that are on the horizon. But I think Indy is on everybody's hope and pray list. Going out with some sort of a strong finale. Just hope and pray, guys. Just hope and pray.
Yeah, but how many times are they going to say this is Harrison Ford's last movie?
Well, I think this one is. I mean, he's even said that this is it. And I think it's interesting what they're doing with it. I mean, again, that's another movie where we really don't know what the hell's going on, even from the trailer. I mean, we have a sense of time travel or something, but we don't really know what's going on. But I think that's a really wild way to go out with something really crazy. I mean, there's that cool line in the trailer where he's like, look, I don't believe in magic and mysticism, but there's been things I've seen in my life that I can't explain. So that's like a really cool like evolution of the character to be like, hey, I'm a scientist, right? But yeah, there's some weird stuff out there too. That's like a cool evolution of the character. So um, I'm hopeful. I mean, ultimately, if it's bad, it doesn't matter because
Mm.
I have my first three, and
Yeah.
you know they're untouchable, so it doesn't really matter. You can't really ruin it. It's you know, you gotta. I think you really got to work hard to ruin a franchise. And you know, Ryan Johnson did that for Star Wars.
Yeah, well, and they almost did it to Ghostbusters too. As if it wasn't for Afterlife, that it would have been
Yeah,
ruined.
yeah. Well, I mean, Ghostbusters was just that 2014 thing or whenever it was, 2016. That was just so it was just so not smart. There was nothing smart
No,
about it. Nothing smart about it.
you can't go full meta with the Ghostbusters. It's not going to work.
Yeah,
Nobody's
it's not
gonna
gonna work.
nobody's gonna take it seriously.
Yep. Yep.
So you bring out everybody. You bring out Dan Aykroyd. You bring out Ernie Hudson. You bring out
Yeah, but none
you
of
know
them are the characters.
yeah,
They're like, oh yeah, these are just dudes that are in New York. Like, oh god,
yeah.
that's not good. That's not good. That's not good. But yeah, you know, it's interesting time for pop culture, and you know, I've actually been in talks with some people about licensing some stuff. I can't really talk about it, but there is the possibility of me working on some licensed properties, which you know, some obscure stuff, and one in particular is rather large and kind of surprisingly available to be discussed. So if that should come down the pipeline, that would be really wild. But I've had licensing talks with folks before because I was asking them like, hey, how do you know? Tell me what you think about licensing. How should I do it? And they were like, yeah, don't do it. I was like, oh, okay, all right. That was not what I expected, but it is what it is. You
And it's
know,
hard because you just did Bad Kitty, which is a big thing.
Mhm.
It's like working with Dynamite to do that. I was talking to Marat, and Marat just did Vampirella
Mhm.
with his characters with Naughty and Nice. It's there's a lot of good crossover stuff, which
Mhm.
works a lot easier than just going
Sure.
straight up IP. Trying to grab the IP and run it. Um, but it's also an interesting conception too when you have two companies like Counterpoint or like BDI, or if you have anybody working with Dynamite, like if your characters cross over to Dynamite or vice versa, like that would be an awesome thing. Like just think about it, Red Sonja shows up in Penny for Your Soul. What would
Mhm.
she do?
Yeah.
Or Purgatory shows up. It'd be kind of cool to see how that works.
Well, I've pitched a crossover idea, so we'll see if it has not been rejected. Um, but it is still back burner. So if it does happen, it would be really crazy cool. So we'll see.
Well, with that being said, what else do you got planned for this year?
So this year we launched Goth Day May 22nd on Monday. In July, I don't know what the date we're doing it yet is. I think it's going to be. Let me go to July. I think it's going to be the 8th, July 8th. We're officially celebrating our 13-year anniversary with an anthology called BD 13. I will be writing one story. It's a 40-page book, 3 stories. I'm writing one of the stories called Yeehaw Vampires. Pat Shand is writing one of the stories. He's coming back to Slipstream, which is part of the Critter universe that he wrote many, many years ago for us. So he's coming back and doing a new Slipstream story. And then Stephanie Menard is doing a new Princesses versus Zombies story, introducing a new princess. So that will be the BD 13 anthology in July. And then in September, yeah. And then in September, we're looking to put Critter Volume 5 in print in a trade paperback because it's never been collected. And a lot of those issues are really hard to find. So
They are.
September, we're going to do Volume 5 so that when we get to January and we have the new series coming out, all 5 volumes will be available to the backers at that point too. So that'll help us, get the Critterverse up and running. And then in November, November 18th is National Princess Day, and we will have the we'll have the brand new full-sized issue number 2 of Princesses versus Zombies in November, and then we roll into January where it's the Critterverse. We're also going to have our new title called Sand and Scales next year, which is our Gladiator book, and then we'll have, of course, Goth Day and whatever else we decide to drop along the way in 2024. But the anthology is going to be really fun. Pat Shannon and Stephanie are great writers, and it's going to be fun to work with them and put this oversized book out in July.
Definitely. Are we going to see a new Ursa Minor?
Not anytime soon. No, we just finished it. We just finished the 10-year anniversary. We finished a whole new arc. No, nothing soon on that. We have to go through so much stuff. Penny for Your Soul will be back in 2025. Okay. It'll be the 15-year anniversary of Big Dog Inc. and Penny. So we're going to do new Penny for Your Soul in 2025, as well as just some general fun stuff throughout our 15-year anniversary. And then of course, Antarctic Press starts printing Critter in January as well. So
Ben's doing that on his side?
Yes, he is.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, he is.
Yeah, I was talking to Larry Higgins, who does Niobe, and they've been doing a lot of stuff with them too. So it's nice to see Antarctic get big again. Like Gold Digger has always been their big book, but they've had so many other stories too. That's been great to see. So
yeah, Larry is how I got to meet Ben. And then as I met Ben and learned about all the things he was doing with like the Superverse and just everything at Atlantic Press, I was like, yeah, that makes sense to me. Let's pitch some stuff to him. And he loved it. And that's it.
Ben's so easy to talk to. He don't care. He'll talk to anybody. You go up, you go to him at convention, he'll talk for you like 20 minutes. He don't care.
Absolutely.
But that's why I enjoy independence. I enjoy, all the brands that we have today is because you guys are personable. We can come talk to you. It makes it fun. It makes it relatable. And we have great comics to read. And that's the big deal today, is to have something good to read and something to see.
That's our goal.
So, Tom, we're going to close out here. Do you have anything that you'd like to add on to it? And also tell them, where can everybody reach you at?
Yeah. So basically, we kind of live on Facebook, so everything kind of goes there first. So you can find me, or you can just go to Big Dog Inc. We have a fan page as well. If you're Twitter or Instagram, we're BDI Comics. We also have a Patreon, patreon.com/Big Dog Inc. We're on, everything we do goes through Kickstarter. So we are direct to customer first and foremost. So, we're not in comic book stores, except for the few that deal with us directly. Jesse James Comics deals with us, Creative Comics, there's places that deal with us directly, but generally speaking, everything we do comes from us to you, Kickstarter, website, eBay, whatever. So if anybody has any questions, you are welcome to always just shoot me a message on Facebook or whatever social media you're using. Like I said, we can direct you to, hey, you need volume 1 of something. Here's what it is. Here's how it works. We'll get you set up. But we try and keep it nice and easy. And someone's always around to answer your questions.
And Tom's always there. I can actually ask Tom a question usually any day, and he'll respond back the same day typically. So that's great customer service, folks.
Yep, we make it super easy. I mean, if I'm on Facebook, I'm on my computer all the time. Like this laptop, I'm always on it because I'm writing or doing whatever I'm doing. So if all of a sudden a Facebook message pops up, ding ding, like, oh, okay, who's that? Let's go help that person out.
I appreciate it. Thank you, Tom, for being here, and thank you everybody that's been here watching it tonight and watches it later. Hope you guys have a great night and a great weekend. This has been your redneck from Texas, Nate. This has been Mr. Tom Hutchinson from Big Dog Inc. And thank you guys and have a great night.
Thanks.